Of course, we got our tummies all full, right? But it really doesn't matter. We're singing for fun here. Let's go ahead and start that first one. And I don't know, I had a little mixed feelings. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Wow. But most of you know the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and so we'll just sing it to that. And everybody got their voice? All right, here we go. Arise and sing the growing of the mighty Wolbrink flag. They are living now in many states spread out across the land. Our family tree has rooted and is making quite a stand. Our tribe is marching on. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Our heritage is strong. We forgot someone to bring the drums. Any buglers here? All right. Oh, that's neat. And then behold our family tree, and that's my country, 'tis of thee. And I looked and I thought, 4 verses, but it goes so fast. You know, and you think of all the creativeness that went into these verses. You know, we've just got to sing it. So let's try this one. Everybody ready? Okay. Behold our family tree, sweet names you'll all agree, of thee we sing. Grand folks depended all, their names in pride we call. Jacob Wolbrink and his dear wife Hattie Brower. Is that right? Okay. To start their family tree, Richard, Charles, William, and Garrett too. My goodness, what a crew! By leaps and bounds they grew. They said, what shall we do? Help us, oh God. My. They started out with 4, but there were many more. God's blessings came. John, Nellie, Gideon, Reed, they added willingly. Katie, Sarah, and Junior too, and they were through. Their blessings multiplied in our times, and those that were prosperous. 10 was their final count, and now we're many kin, but we are here to honor them this reunion day. How many folks can sing a song like this? It's pretty special.
One of a kind. That's great. Thank you for that, Bert. And for Ann for putting that together. So we'll see if we can carry that on there. There are some here who were not here last evening, and we really should be sure they are introduced. Joyce was one of them. Everybody's recognized that. Who else is not here? I don't rely on me to keep track of that. And some that came a little bit late. So. Oh yeah, Deb is here, right? Hi, Deb from Garrett's family. Good representation there. And well, actually, Lois came in kind of after the introduction, so you better stand up with your clan. You got one of the.
We have almost all of us. Then John is here. Peter is our youngest son. And Rick is here with Melissa and Ben and Henry.
He's pretty
And
good
they're-
stuff.
I don't get to see them very often, and they're from South Texas, Edinburgh, Texas, near McAllen, and then the Davis clan, TJ, Andrew, William, and our daughter Heather, and Fran.
He's trying to keep the lights on, so we're going out there.
And so they are now from Bismarck.
Great. Okay. Okay, welcome to you too. So glad you came. That's really, to think about it. We got it from basically coast to coast to border. You come from Portland to beyond Atlanta, Rhode Island, and that's all the way from about as far south as you can get in this country, and at least Minneapolis or further. Yeah, Bismarck. That's right. That's further north of Minneapolis. So that's pretty impressive. That's pretty neat there. I was going to have Harold come up here, but he's going to fill his plate on for him, so maybe we'll give him 10 more minutes. Harold, why don't you come up? He's got some really neat pictures here. I had a few sets, and it's fun to look at each reunion a little bit, but then I ran into some gaps, and I knew he had some. So let me have him come up here and talk about them a minute.
All right, sometimes quantity isn't greater than quality, but when Adrian asked me for photos, I went back in my computer. The last three, the so-called cousin triennials, and 05, 8, and 11. So I printed just about everything. So I brought 543 photos for you to glance through, and then if you find any that you like or you want to get off the market, I'm going to sell them for 50 cents each or 3 for $1, and then I'm donating the money to the Gideons. There's my first customer.
So a lot of pictures. Those are all the ones that are in the stack there a bit. So there are a lot of fun pictures there. Thank you, Harold, for doing that. Also, we had talked a little bit about next time, and I'm seeing there's no objections to doing it again. So I think we'll plan to carry on. Did talk about, and there was kind of a self-appointed little subcommittee, I suppose, that you'd call it, that got together and said, well, there might be some advantage in having 3 of the family groups do it instead of 2. And that still would come only about once every 10 years, and so that we ought to be able to do it that often. And so we have suggested that it would be the ordinary turn would have been Garrett and Katie, and then John's family has consented to help out as well 3 years from now. So unless we hear a roar of objections, we'll plan on that and look forward to another really good time. Each one is kind of unique and different, but I think you're going to have to do something to outdo a tornado here in the middle. Please don't try to outdo that. I have asked around and thought, there, a lot of, this was quite a storm, there's a lot of damage been done. Is there anything that we can do to help out here a little bit while we're here, rather than just sit around and talk and play? But I get, the people here are just so resilient that that's why some of them aren't here yet, because they're helping to clean up some of the damage and do a little damage control out there. But I haven't heard of anything that we might be able to go help with. I've sent kind of a reconnaissance team to the park up here to find out whether it would work for us to still carry on kind of like we had planned, or whether we have to come up to Plan B. So we'll give us just a couple more minutes and we'll get a report on that. see from there. Hi, Crystal. Oh, there she is. Okay, yep, okay, yep.
She's our daughter from San Mateo, California.
There's
So she
another
lives
one
right.
close to the border there. That won't have to
She was in the bathroom before she came in.
So when she comes out, everybody applaud.
She's late as always.
I'm kind of running out of ideas and things. That we do have a few of those prizes left. Are there any generation? How many of the Generation 5 group is here? Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. You got 3 there for sure. I think each one of you for sure could come up and pick one more prize out of the bag here. They're not quite organized, but help yourself. We do have another request. Rhea says, can we sing the first song again so she can record it? She recorded the second one, but not the first one. So.
Okay, are we ready there? This is for posterity, possibly. Who knows? Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Are we ready? Okay. Our eyes have seen the growing of the mighty Wolbrink clan. They are living now in many states spread out across the land. Our family tree has rooted and is making quite a stand. Our tribe is marching on. Bum. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Glory, glory, we are Wolbrinks. Our heritage is strong. Da-da-da-dum. Oh, yeah, for your ringtone.
She said she's going to use it for a ringtone if you didn't hear it. I was a little bit afraid of thinking about what we're doing when she was on. Maybe put it on YouTube and go viral. While we're just waiting to bide our time just a little bit, I was just handed this as Wolbrink Trivia by Junior Wolbrink. And I've seen several of you have been watching the video over here, so you probably start laughing even before you hear them. The 7 brothers were all the same height, about 5'7". All the members of the family married and left home in the order in which they were born. Pa was 27 when he married. 7 of the family were 27 when they married. Charles and John were 25 and Junior was 34. So that just about averages out. We were not permitted to call our father Dad. He wanted us to call him Pa. Our family went 52 years before the first death in the family. When Pa was on the school board with Urban Wilhite and Henry Wolf, they all had 7 boys. Henry Wolf had 7 boys and 6 girls. Pa had 7 boys and 3 girls. Irvin Wilhite had 7 boys and no girls. They were Studebaker drivers since 1911. I am sure there are people as loyal to one car maker as my father was, and perhaps more loyal to Ford or perhaps GM. My father was born in 1875, and when the automobile was invented, he really fell in love with those cars. The Ford was the most popular in our area, but why Pa chose to buy a Flanders, I don't know. In 1911, Pa bought his first car, a Flanders. I have never seen or even saw a picture of a Flanders. In some of the stories he told about the Flanders, I gathered that it had no battery. It had a magneto ignition system, no battery. It had carbide lights. So isn't that Flanders engine, though, is that still, where's Daryl? Isn't that, or Dwayne? Isn't that still a Flanders engine that's in the grove out there? I think some of my guys were talking about that on TV. Maybe I have to send them out with another reconnaissance. So.
Maybe a little later model.
Oh, okay.
Big heavy truck frame.
Yeah, okay. But in the Flanders, but not that one there. Okay. Well, let me confer with the recon guys, and we'll come back with a report about the plans here in just a minute. So,
And the ladies will be
yeah,
here. We're not going to move.
Right. Look there. 2 and spouses on chairs, and we're going to all gather around them to get one big group picture as much as we can. We got to make use of these opportunities when we can. And who knows when that would happen again. The park could use our help, and I think by doing that we can make it so it'll be workable, so it can kind of function. It'll be a little different from what we were planning, but it'll still work. But the shelter building is still standing. I think it's leaning a little bit, but the picnic tables inside of it seem to be all okay, except there are little branches all over. And so we can help Corsica here by picking up a lot of those branches and just piling them over. And that would be, it's a little bit of a selfish plan that way. That would give us an area that we can still be out there and do the thing. And I'll plan to set up the wooden shoe demonstration over there, and we'll kind of go from there. That will also be opportunity for the kids. There's a playground there, and they may want to see about playing around on the freezes down or whatever, and the swimming pool if it is that warm, but we can get out there. And then maybe we'll wait. You'll hear tentatively at this plan, we'll plan to have the ice cream lunch maybe about 3:30 or so. And when we're over there working and dealing, we'll make the final decision for sure whether that's over there or back over here. There. Tentatively, this plan, we'll plan to have that over there. So, everybody who wants to, or let's have everybody gather over here. We'll have a couple of chairs, and Alvin and Sarah, and do a picture around them, and then Fran will do her presentation here. The rest of us will go over to the park.
Is this mine?
Ends up being right, huh?
I don't think those shoes fit you, Daryl.
Well, I don't think so.
They did at one point.
Yeah.
That's been a while ago.
Just a couple of years before that birthday he was talking about. And he
Yes.
This is, you're probably familiar with it. It's not a regular hatchet. It's a broad axe. Anybody know the difference between a hatchet and a broad axe? It's right-handed. See how it's sharpened on just one side. So, chopping on this side wouldn't work that well. but basically there are 3 tools that you use to do it, and so you shape it out with the It looks a little more like a shoe. I've done a little prep on a couple of them just partly at the same time, and I work better when I'm not talking than when I'm talking. Let's put this is the, I think the biggest key to making them, and probably the most significant part of what they've done.
I think I'd move too.
Yeah.
He's got the big iron out. We got
So I've shaped this one a little bit more. I know this predominantly as a block knife. Some people call it, I think the Welsh, they call it a stock knife or hook knife, rat tail knife. But that's the secret of it is that it's basically a draw knife, but a draw knife which I've got a shaving horse too that I make chair legs on. There you put the wood in the clamp, and then you have 2 hands on the draw knife. How many of you have a old shaving horse around the farm places? I'm sure the Grandpa Wolbrink would have had one. It's probably not around anymore, most likely, because they're made of wood and they just don't last. Like there aren't been many wooden shoes around, because they were figured just everyday thing and not as anything fancy. So you don't get old ones. So when they wore them out, which they would in sometimes a year or less, they needed firewood, and so they were used for things like that. But this is the like I say, getting that curve is a significant part of being a real good shoemaker, which I'm not. I'm not going to complain that at all.
What's the moisture content of that wood?
I have a little, one of the cheap moisture meters, and if they get below 20 or so, I try and look for another log, because I like it to be pretty wet. These were in a
a longer log, and just earlier this week I cut them into these sections, and that's part of the reason they're kind of checked on the ends. But they're damp on the ends, but they're pretty wet inside. I keep trying to work out a deal with Fran, because I'm now using up 2 of the bottom shelves of our freezer at home. With gotten some logs, and if you freeze them, then you can keep them for, well, they still dry out some in the frost-free freezers, but they're still pretty good. Because I probably will demonstrate again at Pella next year, and I'll need some things to work it with.
So what percentage moisture do you prefer?
Wet as possible.
As wet as possible.
Yeah. And so the sooner you can cut it, the sooner you can work it, the better, after the tree has been cut.
Yes. So you're saying 30–40%?
Yeah. Yeah, they'll lose, and that would be about it. They'll lose about half their weight. Most of those are pretty light over there. Of course, this is the basswood, so it starts pretty light, but down there in Pella, they have a machine also, and I kind of hate that thing because it's so terribly noisy, and I'm working in the same shop and can't really wear earplugs because I'm trying to talk to the people. But and so that's what I tell everybody, that those machines came along and put 12 of my buddies out of work. So they aren't necessarily such a good thing there. But they, well, last couple of years, the only thing they've been able to get a hold of was soft maple, and that makes even more noise on their machines, and it cuts pretty hard. Then we had to do some trimming, and I help them some with that, but that really does lose its weight. They would make a pair, and then they would basically hang them in the shade, and for about 6 weeks to dry. And that's about how long it takes to dry a shoe. I don't think I'll take too much more time just refining that at this point. I need to cut out the top. That's what they'll often do actually is, you look at it frequently, but you have for sure if you're making a pair or a model, you set a shoe right there, and then you can kind of look at it to give some idea of what you're trying to do.
Now, you have said there's only about 2 other shoemakers left in this country?
Well, I don't know. He is still, it'll be 4 years ago now that we went over, and he actually is still living, and I think still doing some demonstration with it. And he is by far the best shoemaker in the country. So I've been looking around a little bit. We visited Holland, Michigan, not during tulip time, but they used to have they're still there, a shoe factory where they made a lot of them, and then the grandfather who kind of started it was a pretty good shoemaker, but he's pushing 90 now if he's still living. It's 2 years ago now that we visited, and he's gotten some arthritis, so I got to see his bench and some of his tools and things, but he's not making any anymore. So it's kind of a craft that I think it's kind of a shame to lose some of these skills, or at least information about them. And so I kind of asked a little bit about, well, down at Pella, there's another fellow who is really quite of a woodworker. He's done some really nice woodwork, and he'll predominantly demonstrate. He's got his own workshop there, and he demonstrates making yokes and some things like that. But he would do a better job than I could of making them. But there isn't anybody else in Pella that I'm aware of. There's 3 or 4 other guys that kind of know how to use the knife to trim off when the shoes come out of the machine. They've got a knob on the front and the back, and you have to trim that out, and that doesn't take very much with the knife. And they'll do that, but nobody else that really has gotten into making them. Then I went over to Pella, or to Orange City, because well, you had given me some information about a couple of folks, and my initial contact was, yeah, they got a shoemaker. Well, they've got a fellow who's, some folks can do most anything, at least if you ask them. They can. And he's pretty good. I guess they had a resident shoemaker for several years, who's no living, and I think he'd been gone for about 20 years. But I think he lived with them, or associated with them for quite a few years while he was growing up.
Okay.
And so he's pretty good at running the block knife and learning how to use them. But I think he had a lot of his facts wrong about some of the shoe things and so on. I kind of tried to do some research. I figured I'd try and make up with knowing about them, balance out what I didn't know how to do with them. But he could demonstrate a certain amount how to do them. But so I don't think there is anybody other than this fellow, Bob Siegel, that we got these from, who really knows how to make shoes in this country at present. I worked a little bit longer on refining this one a little bit more before we came. And one of the things I didn't do here that takes it's a little more tedious, takes time, is to make the click. And I guess the shoemakers, that's one of the pride of making a good shoe, is knowing how to make the click and getting it just right. But this will take a little more patience, but I'll show you how we do the inside. We can get this set up. Okay, give me a hand here, girl. I could sometimes do this, but it's easier if we've got another hand. Hold those in.
How do we help?
Now, just hold those blocks right about there.
Okay.
I got to get the blocks that I need figured out here to get in the right spacing to make this work as a clamp.
Adrian, before you start, let me ask you when you want me to go get ice cream. It's 3:20.
Well, we mentioned there 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock might be closer.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've been in contact with the ladies at all. You know, I think it'd be good for somebody to tell them, well, give them your opinion about the park. I think it's kind of nice here. And there was still the question, should we do the ice cream here or should we go back there? But you know, if we would do it here, the kids continue to play, and and the ladies could see a little bit of this too. So if that would be my suggestion.
That's what everybody wants. I'll go back and see if I can get a carload of ladies.
Yeah, carload of ladies and the ice cream. The ice cream is the most important.
Yeah.
Well, that's your priority.
Oh, okay.
It
I'll
should
go
be
see what
easy,
they
it's
say.
about shoes, you know. It should be easy, it's all about shoes.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go back and see what they say.
And made this box to protect the tools rolling around. Those block knives are getting kind of rare. My understanding is that they were never machine made. All of them were handmade. And so every one that I've seen has been different, as you would expect. And I think I kind of lucked out and got a halfway decent one. I had a different handle. I made a new handle for it. But you know, just you can imagine just the curve and the angle and so on those is going to make quite a difference. And then this is the basically the secret of carving out the inside. It's a spoon bit or spoon auger. The tip is sharp, but also the sides, and so you can cut with and this is the part that too, that the wetter the wood is, the easier it is to do. This is going to make me end up working kind of a little harder than I like to anymore since I'm retired. Man, I might stop with that. I should make that about the depth of the shoe, which is about my finger depth. You leave, you know, on a full-size shoe, you leave about a 3/4 of an inch on the sole, or half to 3/4 on the sole, and 1/4 inch more on the heel. Gives you a little bit of tilt, and also the thicker you leave the sole, of course, the longer they'd wear. If they're wearing them and they still do, the last figures I can get a hold of, that there are as many as 3 million shoes made a year. You know, it's like they say, essentially all of them machine made, because even in the Netherlands there aren't very many hand shoemakers anymore. But of the 3 million, 2 million of them are sold to the tourist trade in the souvenir shops and things. But there still are 1 million of them are used for people. You know, they're really handy. Instead of, if you walk out on the wet fields or the cow lot, you know, you're really a lot better if you're out in the cow lot with a pair of these wooden shoes than you are with the rubber boots that a lot of you guys wear. Because if a cow steps on your toe with that rubber boot, it could kind of hard to cause problems for a while. You got a wooden shoe on, it might crack the shoe, and it's probably yeah, yeah. Just to be smarter than the cow. That's better.
Depth in the mirror might make a difference too.
Because you don't hand milk them anymore either. I think that's when they would really get stuff on them. Stay out of their way. But they are actually certified for working in industrial situations in the Netherlands, because like in a foundry, if you work with a steel-toed shoe and some of that hot metal falls on it, heat transfers, or that metal transfers that heat pretty quickly. And you're wearing a wooden shoe and some of that hot metal falls on it, and you can just walk away. So that's the principle. You just keep doing the same thing until you get, you know, as deep as you want it, up to the toe room, and then you cut it out from the back holes to the front. Like I started a little bit. So you see, I can cut on the side of this as well as the tip, and so you can really shape things pretty well. So, anybody want to try using a block knife? I wouldn't have any problem with that. Well, somebody's trying that. We'll pass this one around and see if you can see anything unique about that. But we can put the block knife up here, and I think the one that I started. Yep. If anybody who wants to.
I heard you talking.
Try a little carving knife. Come on and try it. Just don't cut your fingers off. See, otherwise you end up one of my brothers. You put it. See where you're going to. The blade cuts here. So you come on over here and stand like that. The blade cuts there. You kind of figure where you cut that way, because you want the force going from the knife to the bench. And you can't cut out this way, the bench will tip over. And so we just want to cut each little piece at a time. So you just...
Climb out of the guy.
Probably.
You know, these really don't dull very quickly because you're using green wood. And so, you know, I've got lots of things to sharpen with, and I use pretty much the things that you would have sharpened a knife, but, you know, stone or, you know, the...
But you're not strapping leather.
Well, I will, to fine-tune this one, I will. Fine and to stroke it, yeah. But they would use sand. And there are different kinds of sand that they would use. Yeah, plenty of sand, and they just didn't have it on paper. And so they would actually have a little cup in their bench, just the shape of the tip of. Those are the ones that are the hardest to sharpen. Yeah, most difficult and most important to be sharp. The forces you need with it and so on. So the cup would be just the shape of that tip, and then they'd have a dowel also with a similar shape. The tip was rounded like the inside of the cup, and so you just take that sand and that's a hard way to do it, but that's what they had available.
Well, once those two surfaces got mated to each other.
Yeah, sure, and you do it so you're not mucking around too long. Don't wait till it gets too dull. You keep at it. Anybody notice any difference, Fran? Danny, you see any difference with that shoe than some of the others? What about the groove? Yeah.
Dwayne figured it out.
Yeah.
Is that for climbing up out of the canal?
No, it's a smuggler's shoe.
Oh!
So he's walking this direction.
Yes, but the footprints go.
Yeah.
Who said it was a reverse shoe?
No, those Dutchmen, you just can't trust them with anything. Now, the closer you have it to here,
That's good.
No, we said it was a reverse shoe. We
We better
didn't know
not
what
rod. We better not rod trust that too much.
You at least observe that. That's pretty good. A lot of people take a look at that. And you got to find out. Now, is the top different from the bottom? Well, you'll probably have a shoe done by the next reunion. I think you'd be a good shoemaker. Sign you up for a 1-year apprentice, no pay. All you do is make shoes all day long for 12 hours. The shoemaker got paid about 50 cents a pair for them. To buy 3 loaves of bread for about the equivalent of making a pair of shoes.
Now, what wood do they use in the Netherlands?
Poplar is still the most popular.
Poplar
That
is
is
the
the
most
most
popular.
common.
Okay.
Yeah, most of them in the factories are made of poplar. And you've been to Netherlands.
Yes.
You see the roads. They're lined with trees.
Yes.
Beautiful tree-lined lanes. Most of them are poplar trees. And so they're, 50 feet high and
Poplars
nice
go
and-
fast and straight.
That's right. Nice and straight, and they trim them so they're no knots, so they're perfect shoemaking trees.
I see your blocks are all quarters. If you have a limb that's smaller, just the right size, do they work to make a shoe, or it's best to have a quarter?
Wood dries around the circle.
Yeah, that's true.
And well, you can kind of see that in my bench here. It splits here because this is you can't keep up with it here. And so some of the other greenwood working I do, one of the first things I do is at least half the log, and then you don't hear as much deep checking. And so with these two, you want the log is big enough so it can at least quarter it. And they would, and some of the wood, the willow was the log was bigger, and so I got to get chunks out of some of the bigger ones that way.
Now, if you take a fresh log that just broke off,
Yeah, should we get him on to try? Well, let's get him try. You can do it? Now, let me show you again. See how there's the knife blade, and so we want it cutting down toward the bench, okay? So that's the forces, because your force goes down here and kind of points right down to the legs. And the closer you are to this end of it, the more leverage you have, so the stronger you hit. You're taking that physics science thing this summer, and you'll learn that. So if you're in here, and that's part of the reason that this little notch is there, is because I can set the toe in that.
Well, I got to tell you, the vote wasn't even close.
They want to stay there? Or?
They want the ice cream up there.
Okay. So it's not a half and half thing here. They want to.
So they're almost done with the program, and they asked that we could have the ice cream a little before 4.
Okay.
Back there.
Okay.
You probably told them you were going to chauffeur them down here. That's why they wanted to stay over there.
No, I told them they had to come down here and pick up down trees.
This end.
You're not very diplomatic, are you, Dave? Not a word.
So how old is this block now?
I don't know.
Any reference?
Figure out what's different about
No, since they're handmade.
Yes.
I think that fella may have had, I don't know if he kept track of it. He had a lot of, he kind of was setting up a museum for it, so I would be surprised if he had it more than 20 years.
Well, don't you think this one is probably 100 years old?
No, I doubt that it's that old, because the machines really came in after World War II. There were, after what was it, 1890, the World's Fair in Paris, about that time, they actually had a machine that they demonstrated at Congress, but they didn't get too, well, there's somebody that had one, but then kind of in the teens, 19 something, they would get some that were made out of small machines, but not too many. And then, then it was, after the war, then people started, the whole machinery got.
Is child labor permitted in the trade?
So this one's from 2011. So why is it they don't crack?
If you quarter them, let's see, in this one.
Oh, if you quarter them properly.
Yeah, that's part of it. You quarter them, and then you cut it when it's green, and then it's thin. Then they don't. See, this one I didn't get hollowed while it was green,
And that did.
and so it's still split. Although this is, I think that's a willow piece and not a quarter. I don't remember for sure.
But if it's a quarter, they do better as well.
Yeah.
Huh. Because it's not radiating 360 degrees that way.
That's right.
You just got to deal with 90 degrees of traction. Retraction.
So do you want to try it too?
Good
Come
job.
in. Yeah, sure, come on in. Colin, sure, you got it. Yeah, were you kind of watching or did you get that? Andy, you can cut in first.
Try a bigger one.
Because this isn't going to be
no, that's not big enough.
a shoe necessary. That's right.
Silly outside.
This is my size.
Yeah, please come.
Walk along the highway.
Yeah, why did he leave an expensive car? I guess he figured there's enough people watching. He trusts the Corsica people.
I like chocolate chip.
No, not that one.
It's not going to come apart.
I don't like my house. Yeah, that's good, right there. That's good, right there. Thank
What kind do you want? This stuff? You need to put that okay, I'll do that one.